Test. Oh, it does work. Okay, good. All right, good morning. Thank you. This is new for me, so if anybody has ever seen me present in room 7, you know that I'm easily distracted and will wave. I know I've waved at Daisha a few times, and there's a TV down here, and I'm not used to that. So what we're going to do is talk about the enrollment, specifically historical this fall, some of the things that we saw through this recruitment cycle. In order to get an idea of what we're up against, what we've been going through, what we have in the future, we need to get an understanding of what the enrollment landscape looks like across the country. So this is what institutions across the country are really kind of honing in on and trying to prepare for, work through, etc. What I have here is an image. This is from Witchy. So this talks about the enrollment projections of high school graduates through the year 2037. As you can see, in the mid-90s, we started to see increases in high school graduates across the country, up through 2025. So that is what everybody is referring to as the cliff when it comes to enrollments. You'll see this very often from institutions. Their strategic plans are ramping up to this. But one thing that I do want to point out is that I believe they've been doing these projections for quite some time. As the projections have come to, so if we did a projection in 2017, once we get past 2017, they then go through and look at it and record the actual high school graduation rates. What we're seeing is that actually from the original projections, we're seeing a 10% increase in high school graduates. This is due in part to students of color graduating at higher rates. So we are seeing some positive come out of these projections. Everybody was very, very concerned about the high school graduation rates, the birth rates, and so on. But actually what's happening is that high school graduation rates are increasing, specifically within our students of color, and that's going to play into one of my next slides that I'll go over. Just as a point of reference, this is what the state of New Mexico looks like. So 2025, our high school graduates, we're going to decline at a very, very drastic rate, which then makes us look at more of our out-of-state opportunities when it comes to recruitment and really ramping up those efforts. When I joined NMSU, before I even started, the Board of Regents had actually approved regional recruiters in Arizona. We're doing much more recruitment in Texas. And I'll talk a little bit more on what role Texas plays in the future as well. This slide gives us a breakdown of what the ethnic breakdown is of these high school graduates. This is through the year 2036 rather than the 2037. But as you can see, the blue line, those are white students. And moving into the next 10 to 15 years, we're going to see huge declines in white students graduating from high school. The population is going down. When it comes to our students that are Black or Asian Pacific Islanders, it's going to be pretty steady. There's going to be slight increases or slight decreases as we move through the next 10 years. Where we're going to see the opportunity is in our Hispanic student population. We have increases. It is the only ethnic group that is showing increases through the year 2025. It does dip down, come back up, and then go back down. And you'll hear me talk about that a little bit more. I know we've got some history majors in here. When I was in college, one of the things that I was a history major as well. One of the things my history professor told me is history is cyclical. So when you look at enrollment trends, oftentimes you'll see this nice little ocean wave. So those are things that we're really looking at. This is an opportunity for New Mexico State University. Being an HSI, MSI institution, we have the opportunity to really capitalize on offering a solid education and experience, promoting social mobility to the demographic that's showing increases moving through 2036. When Witchy breaks down the US, they actually break it down into 4 different regions. We have West, Midwest, Northeast, and then the South. So just at a 30,000 foot view, when you're looking at the different regions, the Southern region is going to have projected growth. Now that's primarily fueled by Texas and Florida. As I had mentioned earlier, we've been seeing this growth specifically in Texas. Florida has a number of high school graduates that they don't have room for in their universities. So making those strategic moves in recruitment efforts in the South region are going to be very beneficial. Now, I'm from the Midwest originally, and I don't have really good news for the Midwest. That's where we're going to see a decline. We have some pockets that you're going to see increases, very diverse regions within the Midwest, but overall, the majority of the Midwest, we're going to see a decline in high school graduates. And then when you look at the Northeast and the West, it's going to be pretty stagnant. It's going to be stable. You'll see that nice little up down that correlates with the ethnic breakdown of the high school graduates. When you look at the West, you have, and this was interesting, you have a couple states that are really kind of the champions for increasing high school graduates. Obviously, California. So California, you see increases in growth in high school graduates. The oddball is North Dakota. And so when I say North Dakota, you hear that Minnesotan come out in me. But the problem with North Dakota is that there aren't very many students up there, but they're seeing huge increases, which is, I guess, good. So those are some of the things that we're up against when it comes to the overall enrollment landscape. Now, what I'm going to talk about next is the enrollment here at NMSU. Believe it or not, on our website, I know this because I just looked it up, we have 30 years of enrollment data on our website. It won't fit on one slide. So I had to cut it down just from 2007 through this fall. But as you can see, starting off at 16,726 for total enrollment at the main campus. We had our big year in 2010, which you'll hear often is referred to by university stakeholders, 18,497. We then saw a decline in enrollment. Now, one thing that we will point out is that in that 2000, what happened in 2008? The recession. Yeah, students individuals went back to school. Universities across the country saw increases or record enrollments. The institutions that I've worked at in the past, you always reference back to it's either 2010 or 2011 enrollment because that's when institutions were seeing that increase. Over time, we've seen a decrease or a decline in enrollment up until 2019. In 2019 at NMSU, we were able to stabilize enrollment. So we flattened it out. And one thing that I will always say is that in order to grow, you've got to stabilize first. You got to stop that decline and then start stepping back up. When we look at what we did here this fall, we're sitting at 4,268 for a total enrollment, which is a 2.6% increase. Yes, I have animations. So, but it's a 2.6% increase. Now, I won't name the institution, but they are north of us, just released their enrollment update yesterday. They only had a 1.4% increase. So yes, and we have another yes moment here that I'll point out as we go through the presentation. This is the breakdown between graduate and undergraduate enrollment. So as you can see, it's not just one that we need to focus on, it's both. Because you can see at our highest point for graduate enrollment, we had 3,799 graduate students enrolled at NMSU. You can also see the decline in graduate. And I'm not picking on graduate on here, I'm just trying to make a point that we play off of each other. We need to be in this together. Because as we saw a decline in graduate enrollment, in order to maintain our enrollment, undergraduate needed to increase. We didn't. We saw that decline across the undergraduate as well. But then when you look at this year, graduate was relatively flat. further enrollment, we saw the increase on the undergraduate side. So we actually saw a 3.2% increase in undergraduate enrollment, just to kind of play in that, you know, the fact that it's a team effort, it's a university effort across graduate and undergraduate. All right. So when we look at, oh, and I do want to just point out, I do ask 4 questions at the end. And so I do pull some of this. Some of those questions are pulled from here. So just listen. This chart is reflective of what our incoming freshmen and our transfer numbers have been since 2009. Once again, we have all the data. I just can't fit it on a slide. Then flows, there we go, of our incoming freshman class. So in looking back at the last 30 years, 2009, that's why I kept 2009. For our freshman class, we had 2,878 students, freshmen, enroll at the university. At our highest within this 2009 to 22 for transfer, we had 794 transfer students. Now we saw that decline in the freshman class up until 2017. We really started to kind of ramp back up. When you look at what happened in the from 2019 to 2020, we were relatively flat. What I do benefit that too is the amount of attention that we were able to provide our incoming freshman students with our partnerships with vendors, with our ability to really kind of drill down into the data and focus where it's appropriate. When we, for this year, from 2021, we saw a decline in fall 2021. We had the pandemic that we were working through. And I'll point out a little bit more about how we got to that 2012 enrollment number. But, yeah. And then on the transfer side, we saw an increase in overall transfer students this fall as well. And so one thing to keep in mind is that this is main campus as well as our online campus in these numbers. For freshman recruitment, I like this graph. I've always wanted to put this graph together, but with this, I had to. So, you know, when you look at the applications from 2015 to this fall, 2017 to 18, we saw an 18.7% increase in applications. 2018 to 19, a 25.7% increase. 11.9% from 19 to 20. And bless you. In 2021, we actually saw a decrease of 8.9%. What that primarily was due in part to was our high school students in New Mexico. We were down in New Mexican incoming freshman applications. But I'll go on to some of the work that our team has done. And then this year, 25.1% increase. Now, one thing I do want to say, and I've said it in our staff meetings, our processing staff, they're the foundation of what we do. We can go out and talk about applications and apply, Marisa, apply to NMSU. You do that, nothing happens until our processing team processes it. And what that team, yes, thank you. And what that team has done over the last few years, as far as becoming more efficient, you know, really being on task, the December 1 scholarship deadline, you know, we've been able to really navigate that and turn it around so that our students know where they stand much quicker. With our admits, what I will say is that in fall 21, or I'm sorry, in fall 20, that was the first fall that we did self-reporting for freshman recruitment. And in a sense, it saved our admission or our admits because our numbers, our applications were down, but our percentage, our conversion was higher of applications being admitted. And then we did see a 20.1% increase in admits for this fall. So it's been really ramping up. The office is putting in a lot of work. And so I'm very grateful for what they've done. When you look at orientations, we had an uptick in orientation reservations, 2468. These are active, so if they cancel, we get them out of our count so that we aren't, you know, we're focusing on students that are actively interested. But this fall, we saw an increase of 15.7% in our incoming freshman class. That school up north only had 14% growth in their freshman class. And so there's another feather in our hat. The big focus that we had this year was, this is our MELT. So these are the way I calculate MELT is students that sign up for orientation, attend, and register for classes. If they don't enroll, they've melted off. That's what I would classify as MELT. You can see 2018, we had a large class. We had extremely low MELT. Those students were engaged and they were excited and they showed up in the fall. But in 2019, 20, and 21, we slowly, or 19 and 20, we slowly crept up where we were melting more students. In 2021, 9.3% of students that attended orientation and registered melted off. So to combat that this year, and it has to do a lot with volume, with increase in applications, increase in admits, that's an added stress for recruitment staff and our orientation staff, because they also call through on those MELT initiatives. It puts a lot of trying to manage that number. So we partnered with a vendor to call through our admitted students. Recruiters' expectation was call through your admitted students, but you also need to pay attention to the students that are signed up for orientation, get them to the event, and then once they register, get them to move in. We had a vendor call through our admitted students. They called 6,000 students for us, encouraging them to sign up for orientation. So as they were making those calls, you just saw more and more orientation reservations coming through, and it was great to see. But what it did was it allowed our admission staff, our orientation staff, anybody within our office that was working with students, the opportunity to show more attention to those students that were signed up for orientation and registered to get them here in the fall. As a result, we saw increases in show rates with our freshman class, and then we decreased our MELT down to 5.7%. And so this is something we'll be doing again this next year, and hopefully we can cut that number in half. The information that we have on our website for our incoming students by gender only shows our freshmen or first-time freshmen, and so I only have that for this population. But this is where I'll talk about waves again. If you look at long-term breakdown between female and male students, you have the separation, and then they get closer to 50-50, and then it kind of comes out and goes back. You can see that in our numbers. Right now, all that I was able to get was for fall 21. We're at 60% female, 40% male. Now that does align with the national trends that we're seeing. So, but that is something that you also want to just have, keep in mind as you're going through and building your incoming classes. Average ACT, in enrollment management, we look at headcount, academic profile, and net revenue. So we're always trying to monitor our academic profile. In this case, it's very easy to monitor the average ACT. Marisa, Tony, I have reports now for this next year, so we can monitor by ACT band to see if we're slipping, to see if in a certain academic profile, to see if our students that haven't submitted ACTs is increasing and we need to do additional communication. When it comes down to it, a tenth of a point is big in ACT. So you can see that the crimson is NMSU, the gray is the national. We've been relatively close with the exception of fall 21. I don't have 22 info yet, but we had a big gap where we were actually had a higher average ACT. Now this does get a little interesting because we're an OR school. Students can be admitted off of a high school or a GP or a test score on the incoming freshman class. Now, a lot of times what you see with test optional institutions is that the individuals that submit test scores have a higher test score. They're more, come from affluent families and so on. And so that is something that we also just need to take into consideration when looking at this. Transfer enrollment. As I said, I didn't have as much information on the incoming transfer, but you can see that There it goes. There we go. In applications, we had an increase in admits. It was just over 20% in applications and 15.5% on our admitted student population. Now, the work that Danielle Staley and her admissions team, Amanda, I saw Amanda here as well, it's not just traditional. They're also working with NMSUO as well. We saw huge increases in our online population, primarily on the transfer side this year. But as we say very often, it's all about the system. It's all about the combined campus for that total enrollment. And then I do just want to point out 631 transfer students, up from 522, which was almost 21% increase. Retention and graduation rates. As you can see, the first year, so freshman to sophomore year, we did take a dip, and this is through the 2020. We're waiting on the most recent information. We did take a dip in that first year retention rate. Obviously, we all know what we're kind of coming out of. Our students were put in very interesting situations as we went through the pandemic. Our hope is that with our collective efforts throughout this division, that our retention rates will increase. Our 2-year, pretty stable, 62 to 64%. And then our 3-year persistence is going up. So we're at 57% as of the most recent information we have. Our graduation rates, 4-year, we're on a climb, 32%, 5-year, and then our 6-year. 6-year is what you typically hear when individuals are reporting out. Okay, so I just wanted to go over some quick stats from our office. I've been in admissions, I've been in housing. I know we have some former housing, even though the Green Bay Packer. One of the things that I've been in admissions the majority of my career, and often we always refer to ourselves, we're in a fishbowl. In room 7, we're really in a fishbowl, and I can't stop waving at people when I'm presenting. But just to give you a little glimpse into what we actually do on the recruitment side. So by the numbers, college fairs, our recruitment staff, we had 111 plus, I'll say plus, because some of the fairs had multiple locations in one day, 111 fairs. We met with over 15,000 prospective students and families at these college fairs. Our high school visits, 371 individual schools. Now, I say individual schools because LCPS, we're there, every week at some points throughout the fall. We only record them as once in this. And so, and then we met with almost 5,200 prospective students. Our daily campus visits, 1,048 prospective students had the pleasure of meeting Kathy on a campus visit and having just a great, truly miss you. Aggie experience, 877 just prospective students. We ended up, I saw an email, Nathan, we closed the Aggie experience for October 1st. So that's good. We just need to get them all here. And then our group visits, we had over 450 prospective students. One last thing, this is where you needed to be paying attention. I do have some questions. As if you get the answer right, you're going to join Team Fanny Pack. And if you have any questions about Team Fanny Pack, ask Nathan. So we're an office divided. Some of us like fanny packs, others don't. I won't say who falls on what side there. How many recruitment emails do you think the admissions cycle? So A, 2,959. So we sent just a little bit over how many, or no, that's the total of new transfer and freshmen. Almost 3 million. C? Okay. So somebody who wants to go for a fanny pack? There we go. Okay. B. All right. It's D. D. But I'll still give you a fanny pack because I am on Team Fanny Pack and I want to spread the love. So, all right, next question. How many text messages did we send during the last recruitment cycle? Okay, so we'll go up there. A, 103,000. B, but these are win-win questions. All right, last two questions, and this is where I needed you to pay attention during the presentation. What is the enrollment? Main campus, so it's the main campus, NMSUO, total enrollment for fall 2022. We'll go Bruce, okay? We got Bruce. A, so we'll get Bruce a fanny pack. I'm gonna be like Oprah handing out fanny packs. Okay, so this one I did talk about, and I did that intentionally a few times. We had a 20.8% increase in transfer. How many did we enroll? Okay, we'll go here. C? B. All right. So thank you very much. Obviously, you know, this is a great thing to celebrate. A lot of good work. Everybody in this room had an impact on the overall enrollment and the success that we've seen at any shape or form within your areas. But also make sure that you do show that appreciation outside of our division, because this recruitment retention is a campus-wide initiative. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, let's give the enrollment services staff, that's at least a quarter of you, 3/4 of you. Nice job. That represents an awful lot of work, as you can imagine. So, you know, the other side of enrollment is retention. And the last couple of years, we've tried something, I think, bold and unique. And so I'd like to introduce Tony Marin, who's going to talk a little bit about our Aggie Launchpad, our technology one-to-one initiative. Thank you, Tony.
Hello.
Nice job doing this.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to speak a little bit about an investment, but one thing that I want to just make clear, everybody that's in this room, online, this is the greatest investment that we have, is our human personnel and working with our students, whether it's at, you know, the point of recruitment, helping them with financial aid, helping them work through some personal challenges, getting them involved with the campus and so forth. And so, you know, thank you for the work that you all do. So this is a little weird to me, so please bear with me, but the Aggie Launchpad, essentially, we all know that there's been a digital divide in New Mexico for years, okay? We know that most of our population that attends New Mexico State University comes from New Mexico. We also understand that most of our population comes from this county, and we have a good chunk coming from El Paso as well. The digital divide has always been there. Part of it's rural, you know, the state, you know, we're the 5th largest state in the United States, primarily rural, okay? Las Cruces is the 2nd largest city. And, you know, poverty, okay? And so while we recognize that, you know, sometimes our students don't even have books. How many of you guys have sat and listened to a student saying, I don't have the book, okay? And so when we're talking about that, and we're talking about technology, which again, with Canvas, with all of our learning systems, with all of our, you know, co-curricular platforms and so forth, you know, we do have that divide. It's always been there. COVID-19 basically just exacerbated that problem even more. How many of you all remember sending students to Starbucks to be able to get the, you know, the Wi-Fi? We opened up our extension centers, and we had students across the state going to our extension centers in order to basically grab Wi-Fi. And for those who were lucky, they had iPads, laptops, those sorts of things. Most of the folks, or a good chunk of our students, were using their phones. And so kind of keep that in mind as we kind of work through this. So the digital divide just, again, it exacerbated a lot more during COVID. All right, so the solution, HERF, the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, New Mexico State University was a benefit of a good chunk of the money, okay? And luckily we had a champion in Dr. Scott, who basically said, look, this is what we're seeing. We're seeing students, they don't have access to technology. And while we are not able to do things with broadband and those sorts of things, we need to basically make sure that our students are well equipped, okay? And so she did champion through the HERF competition that we had at New Mexico State internally to basically provide every incoming freshman in the fall 2021 a iPad, okay? And so she championed that. She was able to basically secure the funds in May. Supply chains were a challenge, but we were able to basically provide each incoming freshman in the fall 2021 semester an iPad. We established a steering committee for folks across campus. There's some people in the room, Seth, Ann Goodman, and others, trying to make sure that we kind of guide this process and that it's not just perceived as we're giving something to students, we're providing them the tools that's necessary to basically be successful at any university, okay? And so a lot of work went into that. We decided on the Aggie Launchpad. I think Philip Johnson was part of that steering committee as well. We went ahead and decided on the to name the program the Aggie Launchpad. And again, we provided them technology, but we also provided them support. Okay, we provided them information related to some of the platforms that they're going to need in order to be successful. And we try to make it as easy as possible by providing QR codes to be able to download different applications and so forth. A lot of work went into this. I think we were notified in mid-May of the funding. And from mid-May through August, we basically worked really, really hard. I see Lori and Rosario here, and they pushed the largest PO I've ever seen in my life, in my career here at New Mexico State, through pretty fast. And so we provided technology and training. We had workshops that were basically conducted in the fall by Apple. The students attended those a little bit sparingly and so forth. They know the technology more than we thought that they knew the technology in terms of doing things and set up. But we had this whole program where we made sure that students were able to pick up their laptop, or excuse me, pick up their iPad, basically have support. So they do have support through the Aggie Tech at the NMSU bookstore. We made sure that they had the tools with it, a case, a stylus, as well as 4 years of Apple Care. And so we wanted to make sure that they were outfitted and that they were ready to go. One of the things that you all may have seen if you subscribe to Inside Higher Ed, this is a best practice, okay? All throughout, this is a best practice. This is what institutions were doing, the big name institutions, smaller institutions, and so forth. And Dr. Scott has had experience with this at some of her previous institutions. And so just making sure that we're providing students with the tools necessary in order to be successful at New Mexico State University. I threw a quote up here because, everybody's gonna be thankful if you get something, right? Okay, we're gonna have a potluck this afternoon. Everybody's thankful that there's food there, okay? People like free stuff, right? It goes beyond that. The day that Dr. Scott and I were over there, as well as Julian Moreno, you would hear students tell us stories like, this is great. I was bringing a laptop that was 5 years old. This is great. I didn't have technology, okay? And of course you have the other ones that are like, yeah, this is great. I'm gonna watch Netflix on this and use my laptop that my parents bought me for schoolwork. But the majority of the folks that basically talked to us, the majority of the students that spoke to us, they're very grateful because this is gonna help them achieve what they needed to do to be successful at New Mexico State. All right, so the goals of the program, they're up there. And again, part of it is to basically, try to make sure that we increase retention rates from first year to second year. We wanted to improve the college readiness by, providing information and workshops and trainings about digital and informational literacy, improved access and use of student support skills, as well as increased engagement in student support workshops. And so many of the things that we know, we have different various platforms, right? We have Handshake, okay, that tries to prepare students and provide them opportunities for employment, whether while they're at New Mexico State, internships, co-ops, as well as permanent career options. We have the Crimson Connection, which provides information about all the co-curricular activities that are kind of taking place on campus. We have Student Lingo, which are basically workshops that students can take 24/7. We have ECMC Project Success, financial literacy platform. We wanted to make sure that students were aware of that. And so we, again, through our trainings and through our support services, we wanted to make sure that they had access to that in order to make sure that they're successful at New Mexico State. All right, so the product by numbers, okay? And essentially the iPad bundles, 1,896 were distributed last fall and spring semester. Again, we had probably about 8 workshops throughout the semester. And then again, the support, the access to support did not cause any undue or additional support on our ICT side, because we were able to make sure that the students had Apple Care for 4 years. So they still have 3 years on that. So again, you know, kind of being very strategic in how we do that. Okay, so this year, after listening to the students, after listening to faculty, staff, and so forth, we decided to kind of ramp up the Aggie Launchpad. So this year, we offered 2 options. A Dell laptop or an Apple laptop. And again, this was in response to basically what students have told us, response to listening to faculty and staff and so forth. And we, you know, we did a lot of work on the back end to try to make sure that these products last 4 to 5 years, because as Seth just pointed out, most of our students, they graduate over, you know, in between 4 and 6 years, but primarily the 5th and 6th year. And so we went through and we basically offered students 2 products. Okay, and essentially in total, 2,043 laptops have been distributed thus far. And so the main way of promoting this particular program has been at orientation. So I want to thank Nathan, because he's been very, very helpful from the beginning. Essentially, when we think that students don't read their emails, guess what? They read their emails, because 2,043 of those laptops have already been distributed. We will be offering some workshops in the spring. One of the things that we learned through one of our partners, one of our partner institutions at University of North Carolina and their Carolina Computing Initiative, is that students opted not to attend their particular workshops because they're already, you know, very technologically savvy, right? And so we're revisiting that, and we're trying to basically refine the workshops to make sure that we're kind of providing the support. Again, there's no additional support on our ICT partners because of the support that is offered through Aggie Tech, as well as through warranties through Dell and Apple. So what's next? Fall 2023. And as you know, I always have this kind of kidding thing with the Dean of Students and with others where, you know, we have students who, you know, may not be able to benefit from this program, basically our junior and senior classes. And so we meet with all those students individually. We hear their concerns. We kind of explain and try to articulate what we're trying to do. And as I tell Dr. Scott in our one-on-one, I'm like, look, I've only been cussed out maybe 2 times this semester as opposed to 25 last. No, I'm just kidding. There's none of that. But you know, we're 50% there, is what Dr. Scott said. So next year we'll be 75% there. This is an important program. It hits on things such as student success and social mobility. You know, gone are the days where we're able to bring a typewriter, right, to college. Students need access to technology, and the benefits of this are great. Okay, it's not just giving something away, it's providing them with the tools that are going to be necessary to be successful at New Mexico State. We will definitely ramp up this program. We're looking at different options in terms of how we can better support students through the use of technology. We're looking at things such as trying to see if we can get the books loaded, their textbooks loaded. You know, that's going to save them cost, those sorts of things. But again, I'm providing this information in probably the most simplest form. There's a lot of work that goes on the back end. There's a lot of explanation that goes on the back end. There's a lot of justification that goes on the back end. But this is a very, very important program. So when you think about social mobility, this is one of the things that we can make sure that all of our students, regardless of income, we're making sure that they're well fit for being here at New Mexico State with the tools that they need in order to be successful. And this is from this year's Aggie Launchpad, and it looks like a pizza box, but she has a Dell. The smaller products are Apple's products and so forth. But again, you hear the stories, you hear what students say, you hear that they're thankful and so forth. And again, one of the things that we really want to gauge ourselves on is like, is that, are we targeting this to the right audience? Again, I think the numbers basically show that we are, okay? And so kind of keep that in mind. What's next? Aggie Launchpad 2023. So, thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that update. And in both of those updates, you've heard a lot about collaboration and cross-work with other departments and other divisions. Personally, I think we do it well as a division. And the way we leverage resources the best at a resource-constrained institution is to collaborate, work together, and keep that man and woman power, helping one another towards a real focused outcome. And I think it's really cool. You've also seen through both presentations some assessment of the work and some of the numbers, and keeping track. And I'm going to refer to those a little bit later for a particular purpose. And I use the word assessment, just a reminder, part of the administrative function of our office is we've set up some committees to have some of you become involved in the administration of this division. Part of it is also to help, you guys grow your leadership skills, learn and understand and meet other folks. And we're going to also I look at that also as your own social mobility, right? Having opportunities in a cross interdisciplinary department is really important if you're thinking about moving up in a career ladder, broadening those experiences. And so I'm really committed to your growth that way. Part of that then led us to the launch this year of a professional development committee. And I'm looking for Abby Howard. I know she's going to make her way down here, right? There she is, to tell you a little bit about what the newly constituted professional development committee is doing. And then she's going to make an ask of you. And she's going to make an ask of you while then I come up and present. And I'm really used to students multitasking. So right here you go, Abby. And whatever you need from us, we'll figure it out for you. I'll help.
Hi, everyone. So for those that have not met me, I'm Abby Howard. I'm the coordinator of Fraternity and Sorority Life, and I have the privilege to co-chair the staff development team with Danny, and there he is. And we also have the privilege to work with some other team members who are Jana Williams. So Jana, if you want to wave, Joseph Molina, Eli, oh shoot, Valdez, sorry, I had my phone with everybody's names and then I left it over there. Rosa, and then Natalie Salazar, I think she's on Zoom, and John Ingram and Donna Miller, yes, Donna. Okay, so we came up with this survey that we would love for all of you to take, which actually, sorry. So if you want to scan the QR code, please do so. There's also a link, but we will have paper versions for those of you that might feel more comfortable writing it down. Ourselves are also going to be completing this as part of the staff development team. But what we're looking for is just feedback from all of you to help us as we're planning for the year and the future of the division on staff development and professional development that we can provide to you all. One of the first questions, or one of the first things that you'll see whenever you open up the survey is that it gives you the definition with the way that our team is defining staff development versus professional development. We give a couple examples, but the way that we're looking at staff development is your development within the Division of Student Success and here at New Mexico State University. So institutional knowledge. And then professional development, we're looking at that as you as a professional, like how can we help you be more well-rounded as a professional, whether it's in student affairs or whatever other aspect of life that you want to be developed in. And then it might be easier if we actually open up the link ourselves. The other things that, okay. The other things that we ask is just about how many years of experience do you have within the Division of Student Success? We're utilizing that number to help us whenever we're planning staff development or professional development opportunities. Utilizing the staff that we already have here and knowing your years of experience can help influence some of that programming and some of the things that we're doing. And even if you don't have a lot of years of experience, you might have external years of experience from this division that can help inform some of the staff development and professional development that we want to host for the coming year and next year. And then the direct supervision responsibilities, that's for us to know how many people might need assistance with how to supervise. It also will help us inform some other conversations that we'll have with people that supervise larger teams, because we want to have you all have this conversation at your future team meetings after today and just talk about like what they want to see for staff development and professional development. And then we're going to do like a focus group with you all as upper level supervisors. And then we want to make sure that the mission, vision, and values of the division are clear to you. And if not, we'll make sure that we include that in some of our professional and staff development. Some of these are kind of just a little bit self-explanatory. We want to make sure that we're giving the programs in a way that is the most desired way for programming for you and your circumstances on how you're working within the division. And then thinking of yourself in context of staff and professional development, we want to make sure that we understand what you view yourself as needing or what you bring to the table already within our division. And then based on what's listed above, we just ask for you to give examples of what you're wanting to see from us. We want to make sure that this is not just coming from our small group. We want your voices to be heard because we want this to be meaningful whenever we're creating these programs. And then if you have any other questions, please list them. And we will also be available at the end to hear any questions or talk with you about what we are doing. Because at the end of the program, I think there's time for you all to be able to chat with us. But if you know of a colleague that isn't here, please have them complete this survey by end of business Monday. And then for you all, if you're able to complete it while we're in here, that's great. But we also want to make sure that you're not getting distracted from the rest of today's program with Dr. Scott. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to getting your responses and creating some great development for you all.
All right, think you can hear me still? Abby, Danny, thank you both. Notice Abby's wonderful socks as she goes through. And, you know, some of you all have some wonderful socks on. And while I'm doing this transition here for a moment, I think you, okay, there it is. So some of you have some really amazing socks on, you know, okay, not the Green Bay Packer ones that someone has on, but you guys have some great socks on. And Melanie's here to take some pictures of the amazing socks after we're over. And we won't name names, but then we're going to create a clip of, you know, the socks collage or whatever. Hopefully I'm using the right words. And I think you'll find that some of you are pretty amazing in your socks and how that goes. So you've heard a little bit about collaboration. You've heard a little bit about the numbers. You heard about what Abby was saying, and it, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, I started my higher education career both as a recruiter and SES kind of space, I also did some adjunct teaching, but I also coached. And so a lot of times in my coaching, you know, I'd meet with my players and stuff, and I'd always have certain things to help them develop their skills. You know, basketball being the easiest one for me to illustrate, you know. And so we would plan activities and events during practice so that people could reinforce their skills. Because when you get in the heat of the moment in a game, it's the muscle memory that takes over. You're not thinking about what's going on. You're just into the moment and you're doing what you do. And so practice, practice, practice. And, you know, from a professional development side, that's kind of what, if you will, if you think about what we're doing with mission, vision, and values here, is we want to make sure that you have the skills that you want and need. You also have aspirations. I think about my bench team, who were very, very important to the team. And they wanted to develop their skills so they could go to the next level and maybe start or get more minutes or whatever. And that's kind of the way, I hate to say it, you know, my leadership styles is really about serving, teaching, and coaching. And someday it'll be in writing. It is in writing. Someday it'll be available, published after I retire, and they can go, yeah, she didn't do that very well. But I want to talk a bit about how we apply these principles and values that we talk. You know, we talk about empowering, engaging, and guiding, those being that mission statement. You know, I talked to you a little bit about 3 really important principles to me, you know, and that I think if we embrace these principles, student-centric, solution-oriented, future-focused, and I'll add to that data-informed, as you've heard today, we can execute our strategy really, really well. And so the reason I keep coming back to it is not because we're not doing it well, it's because we're practicing it every time. So this isn't a negative message, it is a reinforcing message. We're doing it, can we step up our game? We're doing it, can we continually improve? And enrollment shows us we're doing it well because it's important. So let me ask you this question, and you can shout it out, right? So when you think about the Opportunity Scholarship, and we gave over 9,200 of those system-wide, when New Mexican citizens have state aid that can help them choose any in-state college or university, why should they come here? They can afford to go wherever they want. Why come to NMSU? And I'll be happy to shout out, why do you think we should get students here to NMSU? Community. Yep. Others? Care, tuition. Sorry? Family tradition. Thank you. Got the hearing aids all the way up, but sometimes I can't hear. Campus size? Perfect. Thank you. Yes. Student support. Appreciate that. So everybody in the room? Yes. What is the value add? Right? What is the value add? And every day you all add value. Seth said it. You guys are really, really important. Tony said it. Also, you all are our greatest asset. You are NMSU. Last spring, I said, you are all teachers because you do empower, engage, and guide. And even though faculty sometimes don't see you that way, this faculty member does. Right? And part of it is they don't always understand what we do, but that's my job. I don't expect you to read this. It'll be up on the website for you. Believe it or not, this is all we do. These are the functions. It's a function map. We have enrollment services, and the bucket over there to your left is enrollment services, and there's a lot there. We have student life. There's a lot there. You want to keep students engaged in life and activities. Believe it or not all learning occurs in the classroom. Some of the most powerful learning occurs outside of the classroom. And sometimes not always because of good things, but hopefully all because of good things, right? Because we do have the conduct office, right? Then there's student engagement and the Success Center and the need to support students learning. You heard a little bit about learning the technology, you know, support for math. Good heavens, if I went back to college today, I would need a lot of math support, right? There's English support, there's tutoring, there's mentoring, there's career services. There is a lot going on. And then there's this function on the bottom. And I'm glad it's on the bottom on this slide because we are the base. It's the administrative support we provide you. And I like to keep it light. In other words, it's Melanie and I and Yasela and Natalie, right? And you don't always see that behind the scenes. And by developing committees, it brings you into being at that base of the support, holding up what's going on over here. And I see my role in that role as a servant, helping you be successful and trying to come up with strategies to help each unit be successful and to bring money into the unit to do iPad initiatives. And so that's how I contribute, you know, in many respects. And so often part of that is your vision in getting things together and saying, Renee, Dr. Scott, this is what could work. And we try it. I like Dr. Arvisi's thing, try small, fail fast, learn quickly. Because that helps. And so know there's a lot going on. You guys see it administratively this way. That is merely a structure to support what we do, right? And I don't like to see the hierarchy because I believe I'm merely first amongst equals, Thomas Jefferson, meaning I just happen to be the first one that gets called on when stuff is good or bad. But to be totally frank with you, every one of us are here because every one of us is important. No one's more important than the other. We're just different in what we do. You know the supervisors, and they're working across each other, with each other, and units are working across each other. And that's why I don't like hierarchy. I like this. And I like this illustration because it's a bicycle wheel. Yes, I'm a cyclist. And hopefully I'm looking more like a cyclist, but nonetheless, I look like a golfer today. Coach, maybe, right? In the center, that hub is the thing holding all of the different spokes together. And it's that person who's keeping us together collaboratively. It happens to be me. And it's important for me to be a servant, holding us all together and not going off and doing my own thing, because then there's nothing holding us together, and it is us. And those spokes of the different facets that we do, and then that round part of where our work meets the student, if you will, the rubber meets the road. And how do we do that? And we've got to keep that strong because that is important. You are the face of NMSU to our students. And I want to talk a little bit about how that face, you know, because it's really easy to get in a rut. I remember one day on a cycle, I'm going back when I could do 20 miles an hour on flat roads in Ohio. There's nothing flat in New Mexico, thank heavens for the valley. Right, and I'm just going along and I'm pedaling, I'm listening to my tunes, you know, I'm doing whatever. And the next thing you know, this rodent runs out in front of me and I have to, you know, I react, the muscle memory. And the next thing I go, I'm heading into a ditch and I do this. Fractured an ankle, splattered, you know, just totally messed up a helmet. That's a bicycle. I won't tell you what it feels like on a motorcycle because I've done that too. But nonetheless, that rut in the road caused a pretty bad thing. Unfortunately, there was a car behind me, saw it, immediately called 911, and you're going, what do you mean unfortunately? I would have just got back up, clipped in, fractured ankle doll, and gone home. And why spend $100? I already know what's wrong. Not a good thing. I have to remind myself, my doctorate is not in medicine. But nonetheless, we got to watch for those ruts in the road, right? And that's where developing ourselves, creating the vision, creating the focus becomes really important. So we don't derail, because when one of us derails, we all get derailed, right? And it's a lot of pressure. So our value proposition as a division is not just this, but it's a big part of our value proposition, being student and stakeholder centric. And so this year, I want to focus in on service. You know, most people cannot focus on more than one or two things at a time. And those of us that multitask really aren't focusing on much. But nonetheless, keep it so simple matters. So this year, I just want you to think about and focus on service. Service to your stakeholders, which are your colleagues, to, I think of records. The academic units are a major stakeholder for you guys in the records office, right? And some stakeholders are harder to deal with than others, and sometimes students and academicians and bosses are hard to deal with, but let's focus on that service to others. And, I think about Rotary, service before self. And I'm just, because it's what you do daily, whether you're aware of it or not, whether you're thinking about it or not, right? So how do you focus? How do we operationalize that focus on service? Well, it starts with being intentional. Every day I leave the house, call it hokey. Usually the only one awake besides 2 dogs who've already asked for 18 cookies, right? And they bark at me going out the door, which wakes up everybody else in the house, right? But every day I leave the house and I say something to myself. How can I make a difference today? What problem can I solve today? I mean, I do that because it's my focus. It's the way I focus. It's the way I focused as an athlete. I'm sure my teammates thought I was praying. No, I was centering in on, okay, what am I going to focus in on today? When I golf, I think about every time I go out, there's only one thing I'm going to really concentrate on. And I end up doing well with that, and the rest of the game is pretty bad. But nonetheless, it's that focusing in on one thing. So it's intentionality, it's focus, and then it's execution. And I want to talk a little bit about execution today. All right, that execution, because it's really easy to get into that rut. But like I said, sometimes ruts, when you try to get out of them, is hard to get over. I've dumped bicycles getting out of ruts too. The Sea Valley has that. The road's at one end, the side of the road is like this. And once cars go past you, you're over here and you want to get back on the road before you head out to the valley towards El Paso. Man, if I don't time that just right, I'm going to hit a lip and I'm going to wipe myself out. Yes, experience talking. And at this age, I can't afford too many of those spills, right? And so when I want to help you operationalize the principles today, our mission is to empower, engage, and guide our students. And you guys do that. Remember, this isn't about what you don't do. It is about how do we step it up. When you're not having a good day, we all have those, right? Or we leave the house and we're tired. Gosh knows we have a lot more of those, or during the parts of the semester. That's where that intentionality and focus comes in, right? So when you're thinking about how we empower, engage, and guide students, ways to do that is remind ourselves, this is not about me, it's about the students, being student-centered. How many of you had a student or another stakeholder come up to you and they're intense for some reason? They might even be a little edgy with you. They cuss Tony out, I guess. How many of you have had that moment? Yeah, the conduct folks. It's not about you. It's about them in the moment, right? And depending on your life experiences, you're going to react to that some way. What I'm saying is, if you're focused and you're intentional and you're executing, you'll be reminded it's not about you. I have those moments too, right? It's kind of like, my bad. That usually got my players a lot of laps. It's not my bad, my learning. How am I going to learn from that? So if you're student-centric, right, we really want to provide hours that meet the student where they're at versus hours that are convenient for us. That's hard to say, but I said it, right? And I'm a morning person, man, 6 to 3, be really happy with that, 6 a.m., 3 a.m. It really scares the living daylights of others. I've adjusted a little bit in a student life space because there's more going on in the evening, so I try to only get here by 7. But I'll admit, there are times that I'm wiped out, but it's all, how do we do this with the students and what makes sense and what they're doing? University recreation, for example, they're doing a lot more on weekends, doing more in the evenings because that's when the students really want that service available. I can't make those decisions for you. That's where you and your unit have to work together and make those decisions. And that's where being student-centric comes in, and then informed by data. What works? Tony said they do read their emails. Good to know, because I worry about that. We assume that texts are better. That's an assumption. What is the data telling us? It's okay to have assumptions. Stop calling them assumptions and go, my hypothesis is. In other words, I think this is true, What can I find out to prove it or disprove it as true? Helps us to be learning. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying don't always assume that our filters as employees is really what's happening, because we all bring lenses with us, right? And I do too. And sometimes I've got to check my assumptions when I make decisions, because I bring a generational lens. I bring a white person's lens. I bring a coach's lens. I am an academician. All those lenses are there. And so that's where the power of my team comes in. It's like, hey, what do you think about this? I have to check myself. And that's where solution-oriented comes in as well. You know, remember that as a service area, not always do students come with us with challenges and problems, but students, stakeholders come to us, right? They want us to help them. They don't know who to go to. We're a big bureaucracy. Look how big you are, and it's a big presence online, right? And so you are with them in the moment, and they need help. And it's easy to say when a student comes to us, I can't get a transcript. I'll go to that in a minute. I can't get a transcript because they're saying I owe money, but I log into my account and I paid it all. We'll go to that in a minute. It'd be real easy to say, well, you need to go here. Stay with the student. Stay with them. Because you see, they might not know where here is. I'll say it now. As a freshman in college, I didn't know what a bursar was. I didn't know what a registrar was, Dacia. Go talk to the registrar. I'm thinking, I got my driver's license. I've registered to vote. What's a registrar? Right? And I was a first generation student at a private college, liberal arts and small, looking around thinking everybody knew what I didn't know. And I didn't know who to ask. I was afraid to, right? That's where my softball team came in, that support network. Well, some of our students don't have those support networks. And coming out of a pandemic now, they have fewer of those support networks because they haven't had those networks for a couple of years because they've been at home and online. So sometimes we have to reach out and recognize it. And the future focus is about recognizing that every interaction that we have with individuals, they draw a conclusion about our university. They draw a conclusion about whether or not they're going to stay, whether or not they're going to refer someone to us, whether or not they're going to donate. So keep in mind, there is a future. In other words, there really is a consequence to that interaction. And none of us are to be blamed. We have those moments. Again, not trying to go down that way, that path, but let me go to that. Let me go to the situation, right? This is it. Some of you have recognized it. I just picked the Aggie One Stop because it was easy. It's the 12th week of the semester, and a student approaches an employee at the Aggie One Stop and says to that front counter person, hey, I'm going to transfer. I need a transcript, and I've already been to the records office, and probably not because they're at home, and that's a good thing, but they've probably found out they can't get a transcript because they owe money. The person says, look, I log into my account, screen comes up and says, I'm current. I've paid all my tuition this semester. I don't know if you've seen those student accounts. I don't have access to them, but students been in my office. I'm like, come on, log into your account, right? That moment, there are two ways to go. We can be transactional, or we can be transformative. Transaction looks this way. Log in the account. Well, student, I just want you to know that you still owe $45 from the spring of 2022. You just need to go pay at the university records. Is there anything else I can help you with? That's a transaction. It's okay. I'm that student, I walk away, never had that experience before. I go, where's the university accounts receipt? What is a bursar, right? Okay, it's okay. Transformational. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Let me log in and see what's going on. Hey, I was looking at your student account, and did you know that there are different tabs? I'm not sure how that looks to the student, by the way. different tabs, and actually your balance is from the previous semester. Are you aware, do you know how, can I show you how to find out past semester balances? Would that be helpful? Yeah, you know, whatever. The point of my illustration is probably awkward, but the point is, if you're going to empower them, you're going to teach them something. The first thought is, and I had it 2 days ago, shit, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. I got all this stuff pulling at me. You've had those days, and I'm not even going to ask you to admit it, right? I don't want to embarrass you, but we've had them. I have them. I have them more than I care to admit, right? Oh, I just wish you could know how to do this. Whatever it is, your reaction could be, right? Hopefully, patience is a virtue for some of us, right? But in the moment, let me share something with you. If you empower them, you may never have to do that situation with that student again. Believe it or not, you invest on the front end, you save time on the back end. It's really hard to quantify, but it's true. Oftentimes, when we ever repair people over to our house, we hawk them, and we stalk them, and we learn from them. Because, you know, if I can rewire a switch, I don't have to pay for it again, right? So again, I'm talking about myself. You guys probably have better things to do than, you know, rewire switches in an old house, but I want to do it right because I don't want it to, you know, burn down or anything like that. And, but, so you've got that student-centric, you engage them, you empower them, and then you guide them. If there's a way to pay without going to university accounts receivable, maybe you guide them through the process right there. That's how you teach. Many of you do that, right? And that's a transformational interaction versus just a transaction. And it's really student-centric. It's solution-oriented. It's a solution for that student. Maybe you have to refer them to another office. Maybe before you do that, pick up the phone and call that office. Maybe you can resolve it right there. Believe me, a student will appreciate that, right? Maybe you can't, but then you can alert that office that this person is coming, be on the lookout for them. It's kind of why we try to put y'all in ed services that do that enrollment services, because I know students that when you send them off, they don't go to where you tell them to. Now, in between you and them is the dean of students office. They usually end up there, and that's okay, right? But that's the little difference between transaction and transformational. And it's really kind of cool. And I know you all do it. I do. But you know, when things get busy, when we get tired, when stuff is going on in our other life, the personal life that, you know, we work to live, we don't live to work. Right? We have days where we get in our hamster wheel and we're thinking, we just got to get this done. We all have them. I'm saying intentional, focus, execute. And it will save you time on the back end. It really will. And I think it's important. You can just stretching your question. Nope, don't mean to call you out. Don't want to embarrass. So with the person next to you, some of these situations might resonate. I got 1 minute. Turn to the person to your right or left or whoever's close and just say, hey, if something like this happens, here's how I think I'd handle it. Just one of you take a minute and share, and then we will wrap this up. Minutes. No, I've got 5 minutes, right? We're done at 10.
No, we're done with 10:30 is actually with our
That's
office.
All right, if the person talking can wrap up, I love it. All right. So by the volume of conversation, I'm assuming some of these situations resonate with some of you, right? And so as we come back for a minute, so this technique is called cognitive modeling, where we think out loud through a scenario, and in essence, this is a think, pair, share, Kagan cooperative learning strategy. Sorry, teaching teachers in my career. But does anyone, something about a scenario resonate that you want to kind of stand up and share with your peers how you would think through that, the situation being student-centric and solution-oriented? And it's okay if you do or don't, because I'm not going to call on anybody, because some people scare the living daylights out of you public speaking. Moving and public speaking and changing jobs are the three most stressful things in life.
Gotta take her.
All right, thank you so much.
Hello. I've dealt with the top question before. I had a student walk into our office. We're with the Office of Experiential Learning, and they didn't know where housing was. So I said to the student, I'll take you over there right there and show you, because they just moved offices, and the student really appreciated it. And I hope that they resolved his issue.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hand for being brave to stand up. I get time for one more before I focus us on the end of things. Anyone else want to share? And it could be a different scenario that you encounter. These we just see, I just see in my office periodically.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm the new admin assistant for the TRIO Student Support Services. And I was just talking with Therese about how I had a student come in. They had used their roommate's card on like their account, and it was on auto pay. For some reason, it took it out again a second time on the roommate's credit card. So I had her log in and I said, let's try and figure it out together. She said she had put in her card information, but it happened to be under a different area where a different tab that had the roommate's card. So we got it fixed for her, and hopefully that was helpful for her.
Sure it was. Thank you so much. I appreciate the bravery of talking in front of your peers too. I know it happens every day. I know that you intentionally focus on that execution of the things that you have to do. And a lot of times, some of those things are repetitive. And it's easy when you get repetitive to just drift. But I know you work hard. I get it. When students approach us, they don't always approach the right place. Sometimes you're their lifeline. You don't know what's going on in their life. Believe it or not, you may be really important, not only helping them resolve that, but that person may just need someone to care in the moment. And it being that solution, or that student-centric, solution-oriented, focusing in on the future is really, really, really important. So I'm going to pause for a minute and do one more quick poll. I think you're activated the quick poll. And as long as you didn't leave your text before, if you could summarize how you're feeling about the semester in one word, text that word to 37607 if you're still logged into that. And let's see how y'all are feeling about this semester. And then I'll give you a couple announcements, and yes, I'll accept cookies. I accept cookies all the time, usually with milk. Actually, just everything moving around is kind of how I feel like. Nice. So as you see those words, and if you're still texting, feel free, it's okay for the movement going on. You can see there is a range of things there. And within those kernels, you can see there are people who are disappointed. There are people who are exhausted. There are people who feel like they're in a whirlwind. There are so many things happening. Many of you feel overworked. May not be the word you chose, but it's there. And that is something I wanted to remind us about. Everyone is not in the same place we are. When I come to work in the morning, I'm a morning person. I don't work around a lot of morning persons. Thank heavens for Yasella. She's there and hey, hi, good morning. Not everybody's there, right? This is not only give us a sense of how you're all doing and things that we need to attend to as the administrative foundation of this division, but it's also important for us to recognize every day we're interacting with people who are tired, who are exhausted, who are discouraged, who are overwhelmed, who are in a whirlwind. And as we begin to focus and we really are intentional in our ways of interacting with those folks, the thing I always used to appreciate about John Floros is he'd talk about be bold, be safe, and be kind. And I think sometimes those reminders are really important, especially when we ourselves might be in a good space. Is when we're in a good space, we can lift up others, and I think that's important. So enough there. A couple things I want to mention as we close, and I'll probably do these in reverse order. If you've got on some funky socks, mine are in Steeler black and gold. Let's see if an old person can do this. Steeler black and gold. All right. After last night, there's nothing to clap about. Good morning. So mind you, simply say, hey, I teach. What's your superpower? Right? Y'all have a superpower, right? Y'all have something that you feel you embrace. I embrace the idea of a teacher. I don't have to be in a classroom to teach. I just happen to be in a classroom today, right? Hopefully I teach, empower, engage, and guide on a daily basis, not only students, but hopefully employees as well. But if you've got some cool socks, Melanie would love to have you come up. She'll take a quick picture. She'll crop out whatever she does, cropping out to, unless you really care, I know she's taken mine already. But we'll put out a collage of all the cool socks, so you know the crazy socks. By that, before you go, want to remind you of the survey the Professional Development Committee is doing. That survey will really help guide them in the recommendations they make to us as the administrative team who serve you in the division. And I've set aside some one-time money to invest in you. And as long as that one-time money continues over the years, I think we have a strategy, because I think we can go out to conferences and that's one bang for our buck. But if we organize something internal, it reaches more people. And so we're going to try a little bit of both. And then the last thing I want to do is remind you that there's food in the lobby, and there should still be coffee. Hopefully it's warm if you want it. But I really want to say thank you. I come to work every day, most days, happy to come to work. I'm blessed. I love my job. More importantly, I love and care and enjoy the people I work with. Not everyone has that opportunity. It truly is a privilege. Our success that you heard about today with our enrollment growth as a university, the wonderful work of the iPads, and believe it or not, retention has gone up. Those numbers are pretty preliminary. We're double checking them. You are the reason. And I want to say thank you. So be blessed, be bold, be safe, be kind, enjoy your day.